Hello everyone, welcome back to MLS Moves. Please make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Once we hit 5,000 subscribers, we'll be celebrating with a special jersey giveaway. 2 lucky subscribers will have the chance to win a jersey of their choosing. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're just joining the fun, this giveaway is our way of saying thank you for your support. So spread the word, hit that subscribe button, and let's reach our goal by the end of July. Now, back to the video. With Greg Berhalter likely out as the U.S. men's national team manager, the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to have to make some big decisions in the near future. What direction will they go? How committed are they to getting this thing right? And are we going to get the next hire correct? 2026 is too important of a soccer year for this nation, and it will be crucial that we get this thing right. I brought back Adam Turner to talk about what he thinks they will do and if he trusts them to get this thing turned around. Adam, welcome back, man. We're going to talk a little bit more positive things, right? We just recently did an episode. We talked about the failures of the USMNT at Copa America, but there is light in the tunnel. We've heard several reports. It looks like Greg Berhalter is going to be out. I've been hearing he's going to be out. I think you've been hearing he's going to be out. Pretty much anyone connected in the USMNT community has heard his days are numbered.
Yeah, it's like I want to talk really briefly about the whole stretch and tenure of Greg Berhalter, right? So the hiring, for anyone who's following closely and following that whole 2017 to 2019 kind of span closely, right? The Saracen era, post Kuva, right? What you're feeling now is we have a much bigger online Twitter community than we did back then, right? And I was Coach Bard Turner. I didn't have Stan USMNT. Like I didn't have a soccer account. This all started for me like after COVID. I wanted like a soccer specific account because I was starting to do a lot of soccer stuff on my basketball and I was just kind of like mixing and people. I was a professional basketball coach at that point. People were like, "What's going on?" Like they like love the USMNT. So I'm just gonna like pivot over there. Like not to hide. I just like want an account that's just this is my soccer thing. But I was into that search, following the the reform that was going on inside of U.S. soccer. I remember listening to 5-hour podcasts that people were doing about how do you change pay for play? How do you change? Really, nothing happened, honestly. Like we hired a new coach. I think we mixed up kind of the board and the leadership a little bit, but essentially it was like more old USMNT people who have only been in the USMNT system and the U.S. soccer system. Because you need people who know the system and all the other catchphrases that people love to say to like protect their boys and their jobs. Because if you don't need to know the system, all of a sudden we don't need you. We can go get somebody from the outside. And so I want to start by saying this, like we were a struggling organization. And I think if you're a struggling organization, that was very clear to me. It doesn't mean everything was bad. It's just like the organization needs to understand how high level organizations work. And when that happens in almost any other like sphere, you go hire somebody who's been really successful at doing this somewhere else, right? If you're a company and maybe you had your founder be your CEO for a decade, and it's like we got to go take the next jump. You don't hire like the second in command. You don't hire somebody who worked for the company for 10 years. You go find a CEO who has experience doing this. So what I'll say just right off the bat is we didn't do that. In my opinion, like not full stop. And we didn't really rework the organization. So what we got was we had a crop of young players and Greg did a really nice job recruiting and creating an environment where we were able to recruit some good dual nats. A lot of people like discredit that. I think that's silly. I think he was in charge of the program and the leadership. Whoever was doing it, right? Trickle down, did a nice job of that. That's a check, big check. 2019, we lose the Gold Cup. Josie probably should have scored the goal. Like 2019, like we didn't bring in a lot of players that I liked, but like overall it was like fine, cool. You're figuring it out. Some struggles there. If you guys remember that era, like there were some struggles in 2019. It's okay, figuring it out. 2020, it's like, okay, we got this new group coming in, probably a little slow to integrate certain guys that some of us liked, probably slow to get rid of some guys that a lot of us didn't like. But at the end of the day, we did qualify for the World Cup. It wasn't as clean as I think it could have been. And we did advance out of the group stage. So being as nice as I can be, because I've criticized him a lot at a lot of those steps of the journey, I became officially, we need to get rid of Greg after the Panama game. Like that was my official, nope, not working. Let's go. Right. I was almost there after the Honduras game. And I was like, oh, this is looking like Cuba. Right. And people were like, you're just freaking out. Calm down. And I'm like, oh, this is looking like Cuba, guys. And then all of a sudden it's like, we move on based on goal differential. It's like, no, we almost, did you guys see? We almost didn't move on. And everybody's like, no, job done. Job done. It's hard. CONCACAF's hard, man. Go look at so mixed. But at the end of the day, he could have left, I think, not gone to that leadership conference and put everything out on the table and aired all the dirty laundry. He could have just left and said, you know what, I'm resigning. I'm going to actually he would have had interest from some clubs in Europe. He really would have. I mean, his name was like legitimately, I think it's crazy, but his name legitimately was like out there. And I think like at that point in time, it's probably the highest his stock will ever be. Right. But he didn't. He went to that leadership conference. He totally made the whole thing a mess. Now all of a sudden it looks like a disaster. And we go from like, okay, good job, man. You brought us along, pat on the back, get out of here, to like, oh my God, like the biggest, maybe the biggest off-field scandal since like the, sleeping with, I don't forget who that was, right? Back in like the 90s. The one, all the deal. Right. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, we're a disaster. Like that was like worldwide news. Oh, look at this. And it's like, and then we're bringing him back a couple months later. And now all of a sudden, here we are a year after the rehire.
Paid $2 million to be told, hey, just go with the guy you had 7 months ago. Hire that guy.
And the Crocker hiring looks so bad right now. I mean,
terrible,
maybe it's better than all of us think. And he's doing stuff we don't know about. It looks terrible. Like everything just looks and it's just like, are we in a better spot actually? Like I get we have better players, so that looks nice, but are we actually organizationally, I'll go back to where I started this, are we actually in a better spot with how we're being run day in and day out?
I don't
know. I don't feel like that. That's not how I feel.
I don't think so. I've been a passionate U.S. men's national team fan for probably 15 years, right? I'm 29. I was I came to soccer a little bit late. Wasn't my first sport I fell in love with, but it's my favorite sport right now. I love it. It's beautiful. Obviously, your first love was probably basketball, and you've grown to love soccer a lot. Like you said, made an account just talking about soccer. And I remember in 2014, Adam, like just looking at the talent we had, I'm like, this team isn't going to win the World Cup. Nobody expected them to. But you know what? Jurgen Klinsmann, like I said, that he looks more favorable to me as time passes on, because he was trying to change things. He was trying to get our best players were in MLS at that time. He was trying to get the players to leave MLS, go to Europe, test themselves, push themselves, reach their potential. That's why Pulisic went over. That's why McKinney went over. That's why all these players left MLS or never even played in MLS. As soon as they left their youth academy or their youth club, went to Europe right at the beginning, and they developed and they turned out very nicely. Right, I want to give Jurgen Klinsmann credit for that. He was one that planted those seeds, and he didn't get the chance to really enjoy that. It was stale for him, but that's because a lot of people believe you shouldn't get 2 cycles. You should just get 1 cycle as a national team coach and then move on to the next person. Well, Sunil Gulati fires Bruce Arena, panic mode, or not Bruce Arena, I'm sorry, fires Jurgen Klinsmann, does some back channeling with Bruce Arena, has an agreement, says, Bruce, I need you to save my ass. I need you to come in here. You need to help us qualify for the World Cup. And it was going well for the most part, but then obviously the Trinidad and Tobago game happened. We didn't qualify. And then you kind of think to yourself, is this the dam breaking moment for U.S. soccer? Is this where things are going to change? Is it going to be different so that we can actually culminate everything, make this thing work, and reach the potential that everybody thinks that we have? So they get rid of the one person in charge structure where Sunil could do whatever the hell he wanted to. There was nobody was watching over him. He could do whatever he wanted. He could make changes on the drop of a dime, no questions asked. So they got this board now. They have to make decisions collectively. Not one person can decide what happens. They hire Greg. I wasn't happy about that hire because I knew how he was in MLS. He was he's mediocre, but I mean, he obviously wasn't the worst of the worst in MLS because he went to the MLS Cup final. He just couldn't win it. But I wasn't like, you're going from the best coach in American history in Bruce Arena to Greg That's a downgrade to me. And I think Bruce gets a lot of flack for what happened. He was just trying to help us out in a very bad spot. And I think Bruce Arena gets a lot of unfair criticism. But after 2022, right? And all the stuff we've seen, they say hindsight's 2020. You reflect on everything, Adam. Greg has been a disaster the whole time. He gets, he is reaping the rewards of what Jurgen Klinsmann built with all this talent developing in Europe, having, maybe we do overrate these guys, but these guys are talented. We know that. Our best player on our team is a top 3 player on Milan and Serie A, which was not the case a decade ago. Our best player was probably Clint Dempsey, and he was playing for the Seattle Sounders. That's a huge difference.
And he would not be, right? I know I talked a lot about how guys didn't get opportunities. He would not have been a top 3 player on AC Milan, right? Like,
no.
That's the other thing just to acknowledge, right? He was a really good player on Fulham, right?
Yeah.
He was a good player on Fulham. So just put that in perspective, right? Like, really good players on Fulham now are like, our role players, right? Jedi, Ream, like, they're not the guys we're leaning on, and they're not offensive attacking players.
No, exactly. So you can see just that clearly the talent has evolved. It's gotten better. But I think Greg, and also too, you have to mention that Mexico's down bad right now. This is not the Mexico that we saw in the early 2000s or in the teens, right? Where it was a battle and it was just some of the greatest matches we've ever watched between the U.S. and Mexico. So I think Greg was just fortunate to ride the wave of most talent we've ever had, weakened CONCACAF competition, and it just culminated perfectly. It was a perfect storm for him. So that way he wouldn't be criticized as much because he's beating the teams because they're not good and he has talent. So he's kind of got a life raft. After 2022, I was ready to move on. Honestly, I seen enough. I knew that he couldn't win the big game. Netherlands, right? 3-1. We lost. It wasn't particularly close. People were like, well, this is the young team. It's all good. Give another chance. Let him grow with the players. But, this is growing with the players, what we just witnessed. This is what growing with the players has resulted in, getting grouped in Copa America. And I think if I had told you this 2 years ago that was going to happen, you probably would have laughed at me and said, dude, there's no way that they're getting grouped with Panama, Bolivia, and Uruguay. There's no way that's happening. On American soil, no way. You'd be like, I'll take that bet any day of the week.
For sure.
But that's what happened. And so we're at this pivotal point now where this is they always say when it's in the moment that it's the most important time in their history. But this really is. This is the most important time in U.S. soccer history of what we want to do going forward. This next manager hire, which, like we've said, I want to preface this, Greg Berhalter has not been fired officially yet, but what we've heard, he's going to be out. This is the most important hire going into the most important 2 years of our soccer history, and they cannot afford to get it wrong. They have to get it right.
So this is what Tab Ramos said. For those of you who haven't seen the article or the interview, really, really good interview. It's somewhere on my feed. Go find it. I tried to highlight some stuff that I liked out of it. You can read the whole article at Soccer America. This is what Tab said. He said, I was very surprised. This is verbatim. Surprised by the rehire of Berhalter. I did not see how the team would improve. It was becoming a team with no big wins, and it was becoming stale, right? That is a really sharp soccer mind, seeing that and understanding. And that you didn't just need Tab. Like, a lot of people were seeing that, right? It was kind of stale. We had very much reached, in my opinion, the peak of what he could do with the team, right? And so you get to 2022, and it's like, it should have been a moment of like, thanks, right? And a lot of us were probably a little like, a lot of people are going to react poorly to this, but like, you could have said at that point, we probably were a little too hard on you. Good job. Thanks. And his whole tenure, in my eyes, he walks away, hands it off, hopefully to somebody who can elevate it, because he was not going to be able to elevate it. He just wasn't. He didn't prove that his whole coaching career. In Sweden and Columbus, there's no proof. And with the United States, right? He hadn't proven that there was like more in the tank. I don't think anyone was like looking at that going, there's more he can get out of these guys, right? He reached the peak with them, and cool. And it's like, just walk away, man. And honestly, 20 years from now, if somebody, takes over the next cycle, and leads us to, a cool home World Cup run of some sort that we're all pumped about, we all look back at you and we're like, oh, Greg was good, actually. Did a nice job. Got us from the dark days and kind of handed it off to somebody else who did a good job, right? When in all actuality, right, you guys aren't nuts. The first Greg cycle wasn't all great, and it was a little rough around the edges, but now that's all we're going to remember. Now the whole thing is going to be considered a disaster by a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of brings me to my next point, right? Jesse Marsh. This was a manager who wanted this job pretty badly. And from what I've heard, they were going to hire him, but a couple players reached out and said, hey, we don't want Jesse. We want to run it back with Greg. We like what we saw with Greg. We think he's the man for the job. Give him a chance to prove himself and continue this thing. Don't halt it. Let's keep building what we built, which I haven't seen anything built, by the way. I didn't see anything built enough to be like, yeah, let's keep it going, man. Let's build this thing. Let's see what the finished product is. There was none of that. There was nothing to see. And you see Jesse right now. Adam, Canada was in a group with Argentina, Chile, and Peru. So Peru and Chile are higher ranked teams than Bolivia and Panama, and Argentina is the number one FIFA ranked team or club, national team in the world right now. So by all accounts, they were in a tougher group than us. They advanced. And Canada has less talent than us. I like to say that Canada is probably what the U.S. was 10 years ago, right? A lot of good players, a lot of MLS players, but not really probably where they are going to be long-term, right? They're in the infancy of building this thing. There is some really, now obviously they have like a world-class left back, but I mean, how many games is a world-class left back going to win you, right? It's like you have a world-class striker. You don't have Mbappe, you don't have Holland. So that's a little different, right? But they just advanced. They just beat Venezuela last night. They're in the semifinals. So, I mean, there was a lot of people that I even argued with. They were like, "Hey, Jesse is that's a side move or lateral move. He's not better than Greg. They're equal." I mean,
I'll own my take here. I wasn't on that side of the fence, right? The side of the fence I was on was, oh, cool. There's no way we're bringing Greg back now. Stupid me. The world's our oyster here. Like, let's go explore, man. Like, is Jesse the best we can get? Is he? I mean, okay, maybe, but like, let's go explore. So two things happen, right? And I think I don't want to lose our place here because I want to come back to what you just said and I want to finish my Marsh takes. So I'm book noting that. But I think I need to interject and build something before it. And it's this. This is like the slowest moving freaking organization in the world. Like, if I'd known that like it was going to take us like 4 months to hire a technical director, and then we needed that person on board to hire the coach, and it was going to take another 3 months with consultants and Q tests and all the other, corporate BS, like I would have like been freaking out and protesting then that let's just hire Marsh as quick as possible because you guys are going to blow this thing and overthink it, right? So my whole thing at the beginning of 2023 was like, well, I wouldn't mind Marsh. Like, he's not the worst we could get, right? I know there were a lot of people who were like, no Marsh, sideways move, same thing as Greg. No, for sure not. But my big question mark I had about him was tactical flexibility. I don't think like the Marsh that I saw at Red Bull when I actually was watching a lot of Red Bull and Red Bull Salzburg, which is where, I was watching a ton of that when Aronson moved. Like, that guy in that system would have been a disaster with the U.S. And I wasn't sure. I'm not doing interviews. Now, supposedly I've heard it came out that he said, no, I'm, would play a totally different way and know how to play different ways. I didn't know that. So my big question marks for that. But like, if we're going to move this slow on everything, you're just going to miss out. Like, you got to go, man. Like coach isn't doing well, fire him. Every other country in the world somehow gets that. Like, every other one. It's like, time to go, boom, you're out, right? Or, nope, you're in, right? Mexico didn't fire their manager after getting group now, but it's very firm that they're in, right? They made a decision. Why the hell do we need a week to make a decision and make an announcement here, guys? Like, get it together. You guys haven't been talking about what the result of being grouped is going to be? And the answer is no, they haven't, honestly. because everybody was really comfortable. There was no world that they imagined that even if they got grouped, enough pressure would be put on that they needed to, like, I don't know, meet, I don't know, talk about how it's going. I don't know, come back if the reports are true from watching the Euros. Right? I don't know if that's actually true with Crocker, but if that's true, that's crazy. But I don't know. It's just, it all feeds into this like idea of complacency, right? And it's bigger than Greg. Complacency is way bigger than Greg and way bigger than the players, right? It's top down in the whole organization. And that's how organizations go, right? Like if you go to Chick-fil-A and you go through the drive-in, you are treated with like unbelievable customer service. That starts at the top of Chick-fil-A. That is bred in Chick-fil-A from top all the way down. It's not random that every Chick-fil-A I go, I get, hey, how you doing today? Like, let's get you going as soon as we are. I got my little iPad out there. I want to make sure you don't wait a second. Like that stuff is organizational competence. It's organizational culture, right? And our culture is like scared, slow moving, like which way is the wind blowing? We better react to how the wind's blowing. Ooh, what do the players think? Ooh, okay. We better go with Greg because the players might be angry because the players like Greg. Like, no. You guys are the adults in the room. Make the call. Make the call. And if the call's Jesse Marsh, then the call's Jesse Marsh. Cool. That's the call. But it's like, oh, let's wait 7 months. And then the call's the same guy because that's who the players want. And it seems like everybody is not going to freak out if we do that 7 months later. And the whole thing is just a mess, man. And like, it's why I don't feel great that we're going to get a good manager. And I don't know if we're going to go into that conversation, but like, I don't know. Like, are we? I mean, the people who need to hire the manager are these same people who are so slow to act on anything and the most obvious things.
Yeah. And you described them perfectly. This soccer federation is reactive. They're not proactive. They're just waiting to see what happens. They never take any initiative
100%.
to get ahead of things. They're always like, oh, what did they say? American Outlaws put out a statement. What tactical manager said what? That's the way they run, man. And that's bad. You need to be thinking, like you said, they never thought that there was a scenario that they'd get grouped. And if they did, they're like, well, we'll wait them out. They'll forget. They're goldfish. It's not going to be a big deal. 2 weeks time, it'll be old news and we'll just do the status quo. Yeah. I mean, and Jesse Marsh was right there. He wanted the job. Now, like hindsight 2020, but we would have taken him in a heartbeat over Greg, right? I think we would have at least made out of the group stage with him, with this team, and you see the fire and the passion he has on the sidelines. You just don't see that from Greg, and he just. I feel like one of the things about Jesse that makes him a good manager is that he has his team believing. He's got that fire, man. Even if he does struggle tactically, maybe he doesn't make the best adjustments. At least he's supplementing that with passion and getting this team believing in themselves. And sometimes that can go a long way. We talked about that. It's not always about being the most talented team. It's always about, sometimes about being the hottest team or the most, like laying it on the line like our teams we did in the past. We weren't the most talented team. We just had grit. We were going to fight tooth and nail to make sure we were competing in that match. And I think that is what Jesse had that Greg doesn't have. And you said something about the manager, like you're scared to death about who they're going to hire because they just move so slow. First of all, taking 7 to 8 months to hire a replacement just to rehire the same guy is unacceptable. What serious soccer nation has an interim manager for 8 months?
Well, I know it's a different organization at this point. You laid it out really nicely in terms of like the changes that were actually made structurally. But here's why I don't think it's a different organization. It took us so long post Kuva to land on someone. It literally got to a point where I was like, are we going to like hire a coach before this next cycle starts? Like, and I get we were like wanted to wait till the World Cup ended and all this other stuff, but it's like, why? You just hired Greg Berhalter. You didn't need to wait till the World Cup happened. Like, it's like, oh, well, and actually, Grandpa Dave, as he's, I think, called in the community by a lot of people, like, did a nice job during that time. But, like, that's a disaster, man. Like, really? And I get it. You got to rework your whole organization and, your workflow charts in the org and all that stuff. But, like, it's just a disaster. Like, we're not in position. Okay, failure happens. Boom, let's move. Somebody's a decision maker. And I don't know if the board thing is the right move, right? Like, I don't know if one man having all the power is the answer either, but like, this board, like I've been a part of some like group decision-making processes, and my God, they can be slow. You got to get everybody together. You got like everybody's got to like even just like making the meeting sometimes is hard, right? Like they literally might be struggling with that. It's like, well, Cindy's off. She's, on 4th of July vacation, and this person is doing this, and we can't get an all hands until next Tuesday. That literally might be what's happening. Like they might be waiting, like they've got a scheduled all hands on Tuesday. And that's when they'll, I know they had a board meeting the other day. Like just there's such like the bureaucratic nonsense that seems to be happening inside of the org is wild to me. So yeah, are there some really good managers out there that we can get? Yes. And you laid out a bunch of good ones. I read the thing you posted. I've read a couple other ones that I didn't agree with, but like whatever, there are a bunch of guys. And last time I was being really picky, and I've got to be honest, I'm not going to be picky. I'm open to, talking about some different dudes, but like, I'm not going to be picky. I'm just not. Like, I just change for change sake is kind of what I want at this point. And I think we're probably going to get something really average. Just to be honest, I can't say that I'm very optimistic that we're going to go make some awesome move. I think it's going to be somebody new, and my only hope is that somebody new can fire up the group. That's it. Like tactically, you don't even need to have a very high floor. Greg is not a very good tactical coach. Any professional coach is going to be able to figure out tactical stuff, at least at the same level he did. And if anything, they might simplify it more, which just might help guys, in all honesty. That's what BJ did, I think. He just he doesn't know as much as Greg. And when I say know as much, like know the catchphrases and the things to emphasize that are going to make guys really good. I think BJ was kind of like set us up pretty simple. It's like, hey, I'm an interim, guys. Here's what we're doing. It's simple. Go ahead, you guys cook. And honestly, with players like ours, sometimes that's what they need. Just like, oh, I can cook. Cool. Let me go cook.
He's a player's coach. He's like, let's fit the system to the players. Let's not try to make them fit my system. But one thing I want to point out that you said about just like the slow moving, because I just remembered this. I got a text a couple days ago, and I was texting with somebody, a source with the soccer federation, kind of like in the know, and I said, why haven't they made a decision about Greg yet? Like, why are they waiting? If they know what they're going to do, why are they waiting? What's the holdup? This is what they said, Adam. They said they want to be respectful to Greg. It's the 4th of July. He's a human. That's why they haven't fired him. He's a human. He's a person. 4th of July is coming up. It's something that can wait till next week. That's what they said to me.
Maybe Greg's different than me. Like, you just made my 4th of July terrible. Like, my 4th of July is now awful. If you guys knew on Wednesday, just tell me. And yeah, I'll be upset about it, but at least I can go be free this weekend. Like exactly. Just a bad decision. It's just a bad call.
No, it is. And also too, it's like, if you know what you're going to do, let's be serious here. Cut bait. Venezuela's coach, after they lost to Canada, they fired the guy last night. Or maybe it was Ecuador. It was one of the coaches. He made it to the quarterfinals, right? They fired him. We would never do that, by the way. We would never. If Greg had made it to the quarterfinals, we talked about this earlier, he would have been safe as in bubble wrap, right? He's not going anywhere. And they sure as hell wouldn't fire him. This guy got grouped, and he's still not fired almost 5 days later, right? They fired a guy right after the match.
Yeah, it was Ecuador. And he's like, had another job, but like, and people are like, well, he had another job lined up. And I'm like, well, they're still in World Cup qualifying, and there's a World Cup in 2 years. Like, I don't think he left. Like, I think they were like, this isn't going well, dude. Like, this isn't going the way we want it to. It's not up to our standard. And so, I think that there's just a ton in terms of where we're going. There's a ton to unpack, right? I think that like, you got to unpack this whole thing about the players and like their involvement in getting Greg back and their really open support of him. And the reason you have to unpack that, because like, when I say unpack, I mean, like, I'm the federation. I'm a new coach. There's a lot of things, right? That's one. Two is like, okay, what are we like? Where are we going, organizationally here, right? Like, what's Crocker's role in this, right? Because it seems like, based on, once again, sources, and I don't have the sources, but from you and a bunch of other people I know, things I'm hearing are that like Crocker wants Greg. The board is like, nah, man, like you don't get it. Like this isn't the move and we can't do this, right? Like that's what everybody's kind of saying. So that's a whole thing, right? Like there's a rift between Crocker and the board, right? And so like what's that going to be, right? Like how over here, the players, how are they going to react to the, new hire? How involved are they going to be in that new hire? Are we still like players have to sign off? What's Crocker's deal in it, right? Are we going to just overrule him this time? And it's going to be like, yeah, you can like make some suggestions, but we're going to like actually take over here, right? And then on the other side, you have us as fans, right? And it's like, how are the fans going to react to this? And like, who can we get that are going to make this group of like crazy humans, which we are right now, happy and like satisfied? And the answer is like, you're going to struggle to make us happy. You are. Unless you go get Jurgen Klopp or unless you go get, because even honestly, some smaller names that are international names probably aren't going to be the hottest names for everyone. And I'm not just saying us, there's, different contingents of the fan base. So you're not going to make everybody happy, but have conviction, have ambition, go after somebody you believe in and hire them. That's it. And like, that's all I can ask for them to do. And they might do it poorly. It seems like they had, I just don't think rehiring Greg was like having any conviction or heart. It just seems so soft. It's like, let's run it back.
Yeah, and no, it was complacency.
And then from the player standpoint, fine, get their input. They don't matter. They don't matter. Be the grownups in the room. If you know this guy is the move, and yeah, okay, he might challenge the players. He might make the players uncomfortable. Somebody needs to start saying, good, cool. We need some like discomfort in the organization, right? And then with the Crocker thing, like they should make a decision. Like, is it like sayonara, dude, or is he actually going to be on board and committed to U.S. soccer in a way that like we need somebody in that position to be committed to U.S. soccer? And so there's a lot of big decisions that need to be made. And my number one thing is just conviction. And I'll say this, Will. Like the thing that's upset me the most is like we've got, and I don't want to call out specific people, so I won't, but like we've got like a lot of big voices in our community, a lot of very mainstream media working for more mainstream sources, people with big platforms, right? YouTube podcasts, that kind of thing, fan groups, right? And honestly, like so many, in my opinion, aren't like when I listen to a lot of stuff that's out there, when I hear a bunch of stuff, it's like, it just feels like the Federation. It feels like, sugarcoating stuff and 3 days later, we want a coaching change as well. And like, I'll give Bar 76 a lot of credit, man. Like they came out swift and we're like, nope, we want to change Berhalter out. Bop. That's how we feel. Cool. Like a lot of you may disagree. You may think it's harsh, but at least they like have a take. Have a take. Stand on something, And like too many people in our community, it's just like I listen to stuff and it's like, well, throw them in a hat, mix them up, and maybe it's like I don't know, like who do you like? What player do you like? Just like I get it's hard, but like tell me who you want to be at the 9. Like I can tell you mine is Ballo. I might be wrong, but Ballo's my guy, right? I've argued with people for a year on that, and people, Sargent. No, sorry, Ballo's my guy. Here's the reasons why, and I might be wrong. And in a year from now, you might quote tweet this and say, look, you were wrong. Cool. But I'm going to stand on something. And like our federation needs to stand on something. Our fan base needs to stand on something. The people covering the team need to stand on something. And don't be reactionary. Don't look around and go, is it okay now to say what I really think? No, say what you really think.
100%. And, I think people might think this is far-fetched, this hire. And I've name dropped it. A lot of people are. This would be our dream hire. Me and you would probably weep. We'd be on our knees. We'd be like, "Oh my God, how do we land this man?" Jurgen Klopp. I wouldn't say it's as far fetched as people think. There's Greg Berhalter's burner account or son's account, whatever the hell it is. Craig Walters. The worst,
or an ultimate all-time troll account, right? Some people put that out there today to me, like this is a troll account. I'm like, all-timer if it is, like I'm all in. But yes,
exactly. Saying stuff about Jurgen Klopp has no interest. That there's a pact between Matt Crocker and Berhalter. If one goes, they both go. Yeah, whatever. There's something like that. But I'll say this about Klopp, right? And that's a coach me and you would be over the moon to hire. I think that it's more realistic for numerous reasons, right? For one, Jurgen Klopp loves America. He just made a post on the 4th of July talking about his incredible times when he's been over here with Liverpool and how he thinks very fondly of the United States fans or fans that come watch their games. He loves America. His wife loves America. That's not in question. Number two, it's a 2-year project. This isn't a 4-year deal. This isn't an 8-year deal. This is 2 years. And realistically, Adam, like we talked about earlier, it's probably like an 18-month project because of how slow things are. He probably wouldn't even actually be the manager until the new year. He would probably have some time. It's not like it would actually be a full 2 years. He could come in here and be the savior of U.S. soccer because the last guy we had didn't really set the bar high. We know we have talent. We have a guy in Jurgen Klopp who's won a Champions League. He's won the Premier League in the Pep Guardiola era. He's proven that he can get a lot out of his players in all his stops. And I believe that with him not coaching, he has said he doesn't want to coach club soccer anymore. It's too stressful. He's ready to take a break. This is the perfect opportunity to do that because national team jobs aren't the same as club soccer, right? And he doesn't care if he does bad here. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, he doesn't give a shit if we're bad. I'm saying like, if we say we make it to the round of 32 and lose because it didn't go our way, right? He doesn't care. He's not trying to get another club job. He has nothing to lose. He's not like my legacy's ruined. I'm tarnished. I can't get a big job again. I can't get that Bayern Munich job, or I can't go to coach the German national team now. He doesn't care about that. So it's low risk, high reward. And here's another thing too. Jesse Marsh is being paid by the Canadian MLS teams. The Canadian Soccer Federation is broke. Okay, they have no money. So each Canadian MLS team had to pony up $1 million each to pay his salary. So he's making $3 million. We have 26 MLS teams in the United States. Several of them: Arthur Blank, Jorge Mas, Dan Beckerman. Philip Anschutz. Dan Beckerman's the CEO of AEG. They've said they're willing to help. They said, let me know. I'll do what I can. Tell me what you need. I'm willing to pony up. I'm ready to do what it needs to take to get this going because they know that the United States doing well benefits them too, right? These two things are tied together. MLS, the United States, for better or worse, people like it or don't like it, they are connected. This is the national team. This is the domestic league. They are tied together. They have said that they will help out in any way possible. So I just don't want to hear, oh, we're broke. We can't afford it. That's BS, man. There's people saying that they will help out any way they can. That's just them trying to, like we said earlier, lower expectations so they're not expected to do something. Oh, we can't afford it, so we couldn't hire a good coach. Oh, we're not as good as you think we are, so that's why we got grouped. I'm tired of having these low expectations and giving them a free pass.
For sure.
No, they can do it. They should do it, and if they're smart, they will do it.
Yeah, and what's interesting with the MLS thing, so I'll just put this out there. If we have to trade any sort of access decision-making, I'm out, right? If it's a kind of a blank check of like, hey, we get this. We get that your success will lead to a lot of future income for us. So we don't care, right? Like it's Jurgen. We want to know who it is. Is it Jurgen Klopp? Absolutely. Cool. Right. I get that. I get that they would want to know who it is before they put the money on the table. But if it's anything past that, I'm out. If it's like, hey, we also need X, Y, and Z, I'm out. But to your point, if it's just, and that would be logical, right? Like any logical businessman is going to look at that and go, yeah, the U.S. soccer team doing really well and getting this whole country pumped about soccer, right? Because at the end of the day, at the end of whatever it is, July or whatever, the World Cup is gone. And you know what's here? MLS teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people are really jacked up and fired up, right? Like, okay, yeah, for some it might be, man, I'm going to go watch those players in Europe. So maybe I won't be. A lot of people are going to start to go, man, I'm more into soccer now. Like, what else? I want to go to a soccer game. That was fun. Watching that was fun. I'm going to pick up my local MLS team. I'm going to go to game. Absolutely. It's going to spike. I mean, that's just a fact, right? Like you look at what the women's national team did in 99 and how that spiked girls soccer interest to a whole different level. If you look at the 96 women's Olympic team before the WNBA, totally changed the landscape. And I know WNBA kind of trugged along for a while and now has this kind of big spike with Caitlin Clark, but like that started with no women's league in the United States and these girls going on like a 70-game tour that ended with the Olympics to prove that people would watch women's basketball, right? That's what happened with that. And it was like, at the end of the day, it was a raving success. People loved it. People watched those games. They sold out stadiums. And all of a sudden it's like, yes, more for women's basketball happened after, right? MLS is, I think, has been on a really nice come up over the last 20 years, right? And there's a lot of things you and I talked about on a past episode that MLS needs to do better for sure. But at the end of the day, it's drastically more popular now than it was 20 years ago. And the way to elevate and propel that growth is, honestly, if the World Cup generates a ton of interest in soccer. And it will, no matter what, it will a little bit. But if the U.S. makes the semifinal, get out of here. Like, that game, like,
and on top of that, what if a certain guy, Christian Pulisic, leaves Milan after the World Cup, comes to MLS and says, hey, that guy you just watched the national team, he's coming to play in this league now. Come watch him play in MLS, where, Inter Miami, LA Galaxy, wherever it is. I think some of these guys we talked about, McKinney, whenever he comes, or, maybe hell, even Ballo, some of these players might come to MLS after the 26 World Cup, or Tyler Adams might come back after, probably their last in prime World Cup. They might make the jump at 28, 29 years old. And hey, this is the way to capitalize, man. In 2014, after that remarkable performance we had in the, at the World Cup, which that was a great performance with what we had. And Jermaine Jones came over to the New England Revolution. Dude, people were like going crazy about that. There were a lot of people that were just tuning in to watch Jermaine Jones because they saw him at the World Cup and saw that screamer goal he scored against Portugal. And they're like, damn, he's playing MLS now. Like, I'll go watch and see what he's doing. Like, the carryover is there if it's done right.
I'll build on your Jurgen Klopp a little bit, right? And I'll make it more expansive than just Jurgen. I think there is, and I might be totally off on this, so hand up if I am, but we are more primed right now to get like some sort of just unrealistic, out of this world head coaching candidate because, one, you made the point, like, a lot of these guys get burnt out. I think like people don't understand how hard it is to be like a head coach in Europe. Like, it is so much harder than any American sport, in my opinion. Like, football coaches, like, training camp starts in August, and like this American football, the season's over in January, February if you make the Super Bowl, right? Like March, April, May, June, July. Like, you have a lot of months. Like soccer, like Pep, the Champions League final team, like those guys like literally just ended and they're like about to start camp. Like, it's crazy. It's like it is never ending and it's so difficult. There's so much pressure, right? I know we are in this bubble where any kind of pressure is toxic in our USMNT community. They face this daily, dude. Like, you kidding me? Like, it's like you have a bad month and like it's 10x what we're doing. Like, it is. And like, that is, to your point with Jurgen, that's stressful. So like, who are those other people who after right now are maybe like, you know what? Maybe it's a good time to exit stage left, or maybe I don't have a job right now. And there's a lot of names. I'm not going to throw them all out. Maybe I do want to get back into coaching, but just not, I don't want that. I don't want Real Madrid again, right? I don't like, who are those guys? And can you say, hey, listen, man, we got a couple windows here in 2024, friendly windows. It's not really too big of a deal, right? We got the Gold Cup next summer. We got a couple windows next spring, but really like your job doesn't kick in probably in like a true go mode till next summer with the Gold Cup. And then you got the World Cup a year later. Like, we're going to pay you, we'll pay you $6 million a year. And from a U.S. soccer standpoint, forget about where to get it. It's $6 million a year, man. Like, get out of here. Like, get out of here. You guys are shelling out $10 million lawyer fees. Like, don't fee me. You can't find it. Like, get out of here.
Yes.
If you're creative enough, you can freaking find that money, and it's going to pay you back 10x with the World Cup coming. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. I hate that argument. It's the dumbest argument. Like, you can find the $6 million. Make it happen, right? So make $6-7 million, work way less than you did with club, home World Cup in 2 years, like 18 months, you're out of here. And you and I talked about this on the phone. There isn't going to be any pressure. Like, the only pressure that would happen, first of all, we're going to be in love with you. Whoever you are, you're going to have the longest leash. Like, if you're a real deal coach, we're going to be like, yes, yes, yes. And like honestly, like to a fault, like you might have like a maybe not great Gold Cup next year. We're gonna be still figuring out the team. Like, we won't make excuses. I'm sure I'm sure if you're a big name, we will. And I'm not even saying that's the right thing, but like you're going to have a long leash. By the time you actually fail, if you fail, which would be in the World Cup, like you're out. Like, peace. Back to Europe. See you guys. Like, you might hate me forever. Like, who cares? And like, if you're a big enough name, what you do with us will not impact you. Jurgen Klopp, it literally doesn't matter what he does. He could get almost any club job after the USMNT job if that's what he wanted to do. It wouldn't matter, right? He has too much success with Liverpool, Dortmund, right? He's done it in so many places. So, like, swing for the fences. At least try. That's my hope, is like behind the scenes, everybody's like, all hands on deck. We're swinging for the fences here. We've got our 10 unrealistic, right, shouldn't get them candidates, and we're going after all of them hard. And it's not going to take us 6 months to go after them hard, right? Like American coaching, when it happens, right, when jobs open up, like the coaching searches take like a week, 2 weeks.
College football specifically. Did Alabama, like the Crimson Tide, they had a new coach in like 2 days.
Yeah, man. Like by college basketball world, right? Like, you know, there's a website called Hoop Dirt that like tracks all of the jobs. And so as college basketball coaches, you're always on there. What jobs are open? Where can my assistant apply? Right? Like, maybe is there another job I could apply for? And you see it, it's like, oh, this job just opened up. And like, boom, a week later, taken. This job opened up. Maybe like, you know, extenuating circumstance, maybe like 3 weeks. Because recruiting is such a big urgency in college basketball. And I get it. I get that it's a little different. Like, you don't need to be as urgent with international management, but like you can be. It can happen. I know it can happen. So like, just like, go, guys, go. And then if you don't get one of them, if they all reject you in that first week or 2 week period, now you've got your B list, right? Your guys, the Renards and the guys who are solid, you know, going to get better than Greg, but, you know, maybe not the sexiest names. And then, yeah, if after 2 weeks, none of them want it, okay, now let's go down to our C's. But I just feel like we're going to start at C because it's like, let's be realistic.
Yeah, like they're not going to even try. And I got 2 points. First off, I think whoever the manager is, they're playing with house money, right? They got nothing to lose. After what we've seen, they're playing with Jurgen Klopp. If he's the manager, he's playing with house money. It really, like, he's got nothing to lose, man. He's got nothing to lose. And sometimes that could, you know, that can lead to some pretty crazy results, right? You got this team like, hey, let's just go out and get it, man. Let's just go for it, right? Everybody's counting us out. Let's go. Let's do it. Another thing is that Uruguay, right? They have Bielsa as their manager. This country has 3.5 million people. I was talking to a friend, a native Uruguayan today. He says financially the country's not doing well. The soccer league in Uruguay is not doing well. And they ponied up $5 million to hire Bielsa as their manager. $5 million. Don't tell me we can't hire Jurgen Klopp because of the money. I don't want to hear that. That is that same thing we talked about earlier about trying to tamper expectations because they don't want us to hold them accountable. You know, that's it. Jurgen Klopp not being our manager, Adam, should only be because he doesn't want the job, not because we couldn't financially make it happen.
100%.
That should not be the reason he didn't take the job. Could you imagine how mad we would be if we found out Jurgen Klopp wanted this job, but they just weren't willing to pay him? Like, he was all in, like, hey, I'm ready. Let's do it. Nah, okay, well, how much do you want? Oh, I want this. Yeah, sorry, that's a little bit out of our price range. Dude, the fan base would explode.
It's also like it's 2 years, man. Like, it's not, we're not even asking you to pay it for 4 now. We're asking you to pay it for 2 and like have a little foresight as to what it can do for you, you know? And like the other thing I was going to say about, you know, I'm international manager over American manager. And that's not an absolute. I'm not saying all American managers can't be candidates, etc. But here's why my preference goes that way. And when I say international, I actually just mean guys who have coached like either for European clubs or for maybe bigger national teams or different national teams. And there's a track record where our guys, right? Because we have a group of privileged players who like, and I'll use the Dave Blatt rule, right? So there's something that a bunch of us, like on my NBA fan or friend group text, we have like a big NBA chain with like 10 of us who like, you know, follow NBA and like literally tweeting all day about, or we're texting all day about summer league games and stuff and what's going on. We have something called the Dave Blatt rule. And it's like, if you're hiring a guy, we always say, you know, hey, is it a Dave Blatt or not? Right? If it's not a Dave Blatt, you're good to go. And what we mean by that is like in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavs in 2016 with LeBron hired this guy, Dave Blatt, who was like this like revolutionary coach for Maccabi Tel Aviv in Europe, right? And this foreign guy, and like awesome systems, and like, oh my gosh, like coaches, we were like, you know, just absolutely go. It was like coach, we call it coaches porn, right? You watch the plays and you're like, oh my God, I'm running that this year. Like, and like he comes in, and LeBron, the whole team, no respect. Like, who the F is this dude? Like, this guy's going to teach me basketball? Like Dave Blatt, who never played in the NBA, never coached in the NBA, et cetera, right? We have the opposite thing happening now, right? Where like our players all play for like big clubs, big managers, like have played for some big personalities. Like, you know, if you actually go through the list of managers our whole team has played for, it's pretty crazy, right? You need like a bigger presence and personality to coach our guys, right? I don't think Steve Cherundolo's coming in and guys are like, yeah, Steve, I'm running through the wall I think guys are like, I mean, maybe like as a U20 coach, like and it's not, maybe that's not fair to Dave Blatt and not fair to Cherundolo, right? But like, that is just how it works, right? When athletes are at a higher level and being coached at a higher level, they're looking for like, who are you, right? What, and what is your resume, right? Why should I listen to you? I'm a really good player who's being coached by really good coaches. And we need somebody who can kind of like have some weight in the room, you know? And like guys are like, we care. This guy right here, like, he's got a track record. He's going to demand it out of us. We got some respect for him. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's why the only MLS coach I would entertain is Wilfred Nancy, just because of he's done a remarkable job having his teams overperform. He's got a good track record. He's going to be in Europe sooner than later. He's not long for MLS. Like he's going to get a job probably in the French league within the next couple of years. But man, this is the last thing I'll say. We have to hire. I think the time to experiment's over. Like, we got to hire someone who's going to be somewhat safe, somebody who's going to lead us. It's going to be stable. You know, a guy, and you know, if we can't hire Klopp, another guy that I like is Yogi Love. You know, I mean, he won a World Cup with Germany. He's on the market. He speaks English, which is apparently a prerequisite we have to have. You know, we can't hire anybody that doesn't speak English, which is stupid, because, you know, just hire the best guy. There's translators. Everybody speaks tactics. You point on the board, you tell them what to do. They know what that means. You know, you don't need to be talking to these guys afterwards, having fun, going out to eat, having some drinks. Like, I don't care about that. I just want to win, man. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what languages you speak. I don't care if you're ugly, if you're good looking. Who cares? I just want to win matches.
We had when I would have teams full of freshmen and sophomores, right? And I had a couple of them, and it was like, you know what? Actually, the most important thing for this team this year is not winning. Right. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like the most important thing is to like build really good habits, teach them how to do things really well at a championship level, right? Make sure they all love being here, love being with each other so they don't transfer, right? Which is a big thing in college basketball for the last decade. Make sure that like there's unity. And it's almost like that's kind of what we were doing in a lot of ways from 2019, 2020, 2021. And I don't even fault Greg for that. I think he actually did a really good job. I do believe the guys really did like fall in love with being on that team, coming into camp. I think all that's 100% true. The deal is like, now, cool, you guys love each other. That's awesome. Now we need to challenge each other, right? So now we need to level up from the kumbaya to like, and we need a coach who's going to do that, right? To your point, right? It can't be like culture, like none of that matters anymore. It's like, I'm going to quote Tab here from that same article. Right? We just need somebody to come in for 18 months who knows the World Cup, can prepare this team the best he can to give this team the best shot at having a great World Cup. That's it. No learning on the job person, someone who has been there and done that, win as much as possible at the World Cup, and then we'll see what happens, right? And then I love what he said next. After the World Cup, if U.S. Soccer chooses, we can embark on another project with analytics, presentations, and all the new buzzwords, which I thought was really funny. But to his point, like, cool. Like, if you want to like think about what's next for U.S. soccer and can we get somebody with long-term vision after 2026, we need a win right now. We need to maximize winning. And I don't care if the person likes the United States, likes the players, doesn't. I don't care. Like, good coaches get it done.
This is do or die, man. This is do or die. This is That's why Yogi Love, I mean, he won a World Cup with Germany, man. He was crucial in development for like 2006 to 2021. You know, a lot of people were saying that like, "Oh, I don't want to hire him. He's washed." Okay, I'm I am not even joking when I say this. I literally believe anyone we end up hiring is a better manager than Greg. I believe that. I mean, it would have to be someone like we'd have to go into some dark places to hire a manager worse than Greg Berhalter. Okay. It would have to be some crazy.
Here's how I've said it. I want you to finish your point. Here's how I've said it. I think there's a 10% chance we hire somebody worse than Greg, right? I think there is let's call it a 30%, 40% chance. I'm going to be really generous that we hire somebody at the same level as Greg. And there's a 50% chance we hire somebody better. I actually think I'm being conservative with those numbers. But if that is the formula, of course you get a new coach. Like, the most likely scenario is you get somebody better or the same. And there's a sliver of a chance that you F up so bad you get somebody worse.
Yeah, and also to your point, let's say you do get someone that's equally as good as Greg, which I think that I really believe it would be hard to be equal to Greg. I think that you're going to surpass him. Sometimes it's just good to hear a new voice. You know,
Absolutely.
Sometimes the same voice just becomes stale.
100%. If you got, I don't know, a different person who is a Greg level manager, 1000% you get the new manager bounce. New manager bounce isn't always because the new manager's way better. It's just like fresh ideas, freshen up the players. There's always with a new coach, if you've ever been on a team, right? Like, ooh, I got to prove myself now, right? It ups focus levels. It ups intensity levels. It's like, my spot is not secure. Anytime you get a new coach, it's like, damn, like, who's this guy going to start? The last one loved me, right? And people on the bench are like, this is my shot. That last guy had me on the bench. Like, you're spot on with that, Will. You like nailed it. It's like just a like for like makes us better over the next 18 months. It does, right? And to your point, the most likely scenario is you actually get somebody better.
It can re-energize the whole thing, man. The message has become stale. I really don't even think it's a very low risk, high reward situation. The U.S. men's national team is blessed to be in this position, honestly, with everything that happened. Hopefully in 2 years, me and you will do another episode together, and me and you can look back and we'll say, man, we got grouped. That sucked ass, but it paid off. We got to hire.
Best thing that ever happened.
It's the best thing that ever happened to us. It was a silver lining. It gave us a good performance at the 2026 World Cup, and that was a pivotal moment in U.S. soccer history, grouping in 2024. But yeah, listen, Adam, I appreciate it.
Can I say one more thing? Because I think I'm going to speak for you as well here, right? There's a lot of people out there in my mentions and who are like, I don't know, like shocked, right, that like people care this much. And I think a lot of people don't understand why people care this much. And when I say care, it's like, why are you guys are overboard, man. You're like freaking putting sponsors on tweets. And like, here's why we care. We care because a lot of us have deeply invested in U.S. soccer for years of our life, right? It's not our families, guys. Like, it's not the end of the world. We get that, right? But as a hobby and as something that we're passionate about, it matters a lot, right? And so the future of the thing matters a lot because the past matters a lot, right? When you care a lot about something that you've invested in, you care about where it's going to go, right? And as fans, that's like the best thing you can do as a fan. If you have fans who care that much, to me, that's like, you got something going, right? How many more people, how many more Wills and Adams and, whoever else, right? Can we get that want to start their own YouTube channels and get on Twitter and banter? That is how, soccer gets big, is when people care a lot. How do we get this next generation of players to care more and get more people into the game, right? Why does the World Cup matter? Why does this manager matter so much? Because our success at this World Cup directly impacts the future of American soccer in a massive way. It's not small. It's massive. It's a big deal. Like us having an uneventful World Cup, getting grouped, even making it out of the group and losing, it's a big opportunity loss for like what can be a massive growth opportunity over the next 20, 25 years. So that's where I'm coming from, right? Like, it's not personal. It's about my passion. And I think I speak for you on that too, Will.
100%. And I had a guy today on Twitter, because I've been tweeting so much about the national team. Obviously I'm predominantly MLS, and I have been for the entire most of my time on Twitter or X. But man, this is like the time where I'm very passionate. I care about this team, and this is where I took a stand. I'm like, look, I'm not going to accept what I've seen. I'm going to do everything in my power, even if it's a small percentage, like 0.1% or whatever it is. I'm going to do everything I can to be vocal about how unacceptable what we've seen has been. And the guy was like, well, just change your name to USMNT moves then. And I'm like, look, man, you're not going to bully me or guilt me into like, stop saying what I believe. I care about this team. I want to see better. You want to see better. Filippo wants to see better. Everybody wants to see better, cares about this team. And there's nothing wrong with voicing that. We demand better. Like, hold people accountable. I don't want to say it's all right and, just move on and, have more mediocre seasons or opportunities blown because we were complacent. This team's complacent. I'm not going to be complacent. I'm going to talk and see and be vocal about what I see, and I'm going to demand change. And Adam, you should be proud of yourself, man, because you, along with a lot of other people, are the reason why it looks like Greg Berhalter is going to be fired. And we should pat ourselves on the back because
Agreed.
that would have never happened if we didn't say anything. That would have never happened.
And you know what? All the smaller Twitter accounts that are putting public stuff out there that like don't have 1,000 followers, like good on you. Awesome. Because that honestly, that matters as much, right? Because the voice is not just being small and loud, but like widespread. And oh my God, there's that dad's post, right? Who like, I think responded to me and like put that stuff out there. It was like, and then so what's crazy is like, I retweeted that and was like, yeah, I have the same experience. Like so many other dudes, like me too. I was a part of 94. I'm also pissed. 94, also pissed. 2002, also good job. Like everyone, good job. Like this is what a good fan base does. You're not an asshole. This is what a good fan base does.
Yeah,
and good job to you too, Will. Lead the charge, bro.
We're the consumers. We're supposed to have a say, right? This is a business. This goes and dies with the fans. There's no fans, there is no business. That's how it works.
Right.
Adam, man, it's been a pleasure. I love talking to you about this. We'll have to have you on again, hopefully when we make our new manager signing. Hopefully it doesn't take 6 months. Hopefully it's only a couple weeks. I appreciate it, man. Make sure you follow my guy Adam at Stan USMNT. And until next time, I'll see you all soon.